I don't really want to get into it. All right, wait a second. All right, hey, let's do that. Yeah, fine. Yeah. all it.
Contention, what is the ocean? The binary between the land and sea was the foundation for the creation, fundamental inside and antithetical outside. The ocean viewed as such an outside. This binary is the foundation for the sovereignty of its fundamental construction. Cyber 9. Given that sovereignty exists within the system of sovereignty, study the state that works only in looking not complete geography, thus we have not just affiliable space inside territories, but also spaces on the outside that is designated not amenable as an organization, otherwise study, responding to the territorial travel and states that use internally coherent units existing on one prior to the overall system mapping that permits the order to define inside, also define the outside. The discursive division of the world inside and outside is the fundamental object of sovereignty. The discourse of the payment during the Cold War was based on the idea of the state as a container set against threatening environment, even though this outside itself the territory of other states that were constructing similar discourse about their neighbors. The dominator of the ocean as an outside provider pretense for banning all actors operating from the outside. The idealization of the ocean, the ultimate outside bolstered the construction of the rest of the world. Sovereign inside, this division of the world, the inside the matter and outside the third, to develop the insides of the trees through geophysical property. The division of the world, the fundamental elements, land and sea, is the originary act of modern social spatial order. And existing externalizing the ocean allows for the worst forms of neoliberal control. The results of militarism, environmental destruction, and violation of the indigenous rights. 2014. Marine monuments to further colonize, militarize, and privatize the Pacific, establishing a volume place waters under a federal control. The ocean traffic, the government's severely limits for public access to trust. These volumes violate the rights of indigenous people, separating us from our sacred space. The traditional fishing grounds, the ritual space, may no longer be accessible. The Navy can trade and maintain the anti-submarine warfare. The military is exempt from regulation. Public may no longer be allowed to fish in the fragile ecosystem. The military can conduct weapons testing. These monuments are not designed to protect the ocean from military. One of the worst polluters. These monuments to become water degraded reserves will become military zones for the U.S. forcefully positions itself in the Asia Pacific and allowing the ocean to deteriorate, guaranteed extinction, mobilizing students to the public serious key guide 14. The healthy ocean, critical life, climate, and weather patterns conditioned by the ocean are becoming increasingly unpredictable. Human activity made a change in temperature, seawater. We kill our oceans, we kill ourselves. We take the earth for granted and assume they are too big to fail. We need a movement the public needs to be informed. Therein lies my challenge to help find a way to mobilize the public about ocean issues. It's not just about save the whales or save the dolphins. It's about save us. And this external mindset allows states to secure and militarize parts of the ocean that they claim is their own delirium intent. Our current efforts to explore the sea are constituted by unprecedented militarization. The sea is not only facilitating modernity, but it's constituted by after militarization of the ocean in World War II, territorialism, triple the size of the U.S. and generally a global scammer for the U.S. privatization of 35% of the world's ocean, privatization of the sea is nearly synonymous with militarization. Territorialism reflects not just control over the ocean, but also submarine and aerospace that protect nuclear submarines, sea launch missiles, and maritime surveillance. While the high seas are a common the U.S. has monopolized after missile warnings and to restrict passage, the number of military vessels is doubled. Over 1,000 nuclear weapon vessels patrolling the ocean. The militarization of the sea is made into a basin for which hundreds of thousands of barrels of radioactive materials have been dumped. Over 23 naval reactors and 50 nuclear weapons rest on the ocean for a while. The sea is understood as externally carries weight in our bodies. Radioactive industrial dumping has contributed to the increasing presence of heavy metals in the marine mammals and human beings, configuring our bodies and parts of metallic modernity. And this strategy is due to serial failure. Maximization of security becomes the sole criteria of politics on murders. The only logical conclusion is the extermination of all life. 14.5. Biopolitics of both protecting and banning lives, inclusion and exclusion. The aspects of best describe biopolitical danger, the risk of converting the animal to a homosexual, which can be put to death by anyone. Politics and biopolitics, the state becomes violent and murderous. Nullity and stallings, extermination camps, and the most refined laboratory designed for the annihilation of bare life. The final equation between protecting and destroying lives is at the core of the world, where Nazi logic still continues to be effective. Legality or illegality of state violent acts become a secondary act of mass production in order to maintain mass production and consumers of developed countries can ignore the finite nature of natural reserves that jeopardize the future of humanity. They can also launch preventive war to scar basic civil rights and create detention camps like Guantanamo or multiply refugee camps. The imprisoned whole population ghettos becomes necessary that people who take this raw material ready to be consumed, discarded, or annihilated. This dehumanization of man into an item of the reserve fund always ready to be manipulated, managed, invested in technological destruction, conflict, aimed at preserving the life of the winners. So the enemies come to be seen as biological entities. It's not enough to defeat them. They must be exterminated. The entire population of mobilized forces, wholesale slaughter in the name of life necessity massacres have become vital. Atomic situations, the end of my power to explode the whole population of death is the underside of power to guarantee individuals' existence. Thus, my partner and I affirm the direction of the topic of cartographical interrogation of the Earth's oceans. Contention 2 is the political. The biopolitical state is a product of the ocean's colonization. Thus, a cartographic exploration would generate new impact on the institution that problem sovereign states. I deny. Few cartographers and policymakers the descent from the view of the ocean as external. The main accept the construction of the ocean is counterpart to the terrestrial state, given the degrees of internalization. Not surprised that the New World maps display ocean features are prevalent in the 16th century, 17th or 18th century. By the 20th century, cartographers have viewpoints about making maps that imply that the ocean is fundamentally external to society's foundational territorial units. View modern maps of the political vision of the ocean that portraying an undifferentiated feature of space. The future of the ocean is based beyond territorialization, parallel to of land as a series of boundary territories was a long time in the making. Cartographers aware of the ocean not truly an undifferentiated mass, although maps are the power by attributing fixed properties boundary or fairly natural space via active attempting to fit property space are a productive possibility, particularly through the emergence of constituted space that gaps in terms of the map across these gaps, and fishers can incur specific place they define or categorize as north, they can be conceptual. Attempt by mercantilist cartographers to develop a framework for basic mobility or perceived as socially significant materially at the history of how producers of mass and to fill these gaps in so they can be placed within any prior categories of inside and outside fixity of mobility and social and extra-social and how these gaps and nonetheless reappears suggest that the study of cartography can play an important role in generating new perspectives on the categories and institutions that define modern society. The fiction of mobility is emerging in the arena, not just for getting new insights on the world, but also for advancing cartography and recentering movement involves rethinking cartography as well as political norms that developed over hundreds of years that underlie the very foundation of modern society. The destination in some spaces as external play a key role in the ways in which we order our world. Much less attention has been devoted to process by which some spaces have been designated as being so outside that they lack the potential development. The construction of the modern system of territorial states does also involve a destination outside the being beyond territorial control. One set of processes of boundary life one must focus on the construction of outside as well as inside. Your vision of world without distinct insides and outside. All spaces are faced with both mobility, fixity, and all social processes are driven by ideologies of both internalization and externalization. The first step by well involved erasing the boundaries that are mapped to divide inside from outside. And overcoming the landscape binary will produce a flat ontology that is key to highlighting and tackling the contradictions of territorialism. Gerhard Wall. Thinking to a question, skill or something solved for the adopting of flat ontology whereby it displays the jurisdiction downplayed in favor of the actual interaction between the parties making specific instance with the assertion of the flat ontology challenge not the sovereignty fixed in time and space, but also the modern notion of the world that divided modern notion of the world divided into distinct societies, circumpolarity, rethinks society as a series of connections. The arches never fit well with this template of state, which is based on a distinction between coastal land, free-flowing water on. The one hand, climate change is opening opportunities. The arches giving states moon center to clearly define the region within the spatial ontology of the state system. These geophysical changes are making it more difficult for stakeholders to designate specific points. The arctic space is inside or outside this situation appears ripe for conflict. It also represents new opportunities for cooperation for rethinking the sovereign system out of its constitution, become new experiments with meaningful consequences for evolution and global governance. And reject a static ontology in favor of a fluid one, starting from the point of mobility allows the question of the state can be fundamental. Anderson in 2013. The dominant way in which the world is studied through sedentary metaphysics is language seeks to divide the world up into clearly bounded territorial regions. From sedentary metaphysics are categorized from the world as fixed, static, durable, or in these perspectives, not only marginalized and reworld from scholarly study, but also briefly theoretical innovation that may help to conceptualize this world more appropriately. In the world of flow, change, hybridity, progress of seeing, rather the same processes that have only temporarily stabilized movement and mobility primary. There's a recognition that things are the possibly coming from scale. Such a shift in metaphysics suits the sea. The sea is obviously fluid moving in terms of its location, unstable in terms of the water world is inconstancy, becoming the water is the fluid ontology. What would happen if we want to see similarities and overlap between land and water rather than distinctions of boundaries? We can start with the assumption that the world is becoming a little bit waste things to become relatively stable rather than the other way around. We can start with state transit, fluidity, and how trace how states can become more permanent and durable. And the one he sees the geographic perspective that is best started from understanding the ocean as a social space. We're getting. It would be valuable to take a geographical approach from one of the opposites perspective. One appreciates the ocean as the repository and memories and meaningful. The ocean is considered not an arena of political conversation, but as a space that is saturated with social process. The challenges for the policymakers to understand the extent and limits of the conceptualization of the ocean. With this understanding, one can apply to policy ends. And discussion and reflection about the ocean is key to avoiding monocausal explanation, developing system thinking skills. Trend 10. A complex system is an aggregate of components, all of which are necessary. The system is more than accumulation of the parts. System seeks the ability to understand complex systems and comprises numerous types and levels of thinking. When students see practical looking, the world is interconnected. Students tend to have centralized minds that they prefer explanations that assume single cause. Models, virtual and physical, may be tangible elements of complex systems tangible. Systems approach may support ocean literacy strategies that can support system thinking, include designing activities to give students control to create and manipulate a model and provide an opportunity for students to talk to peers to reflect on and articulate and share their thinking. Awesome.
Why would the government doing mapping be a bad idea?
Our argument is that it has to be individual. The argument is that the state that you want to.
I mean, it's a quite a Steinberg evidence says the problem is not the state in itself, it's the way we're being epistemologically complicit with the language and divide.
What does that possibly mean to be epistemologically complicit with the language and divide? Basically,
yeah, I mean, we view the ocean as essentially the sort of the society, which is what that is sovereign state to be seen as a fundamental.
Sure. So in the world of the act, are the land and the ocean like the same thing?
Not necessarily the same thing.
So then don't you go back to this land-ocean binary argument you're making?
No, because the argument is not there, but only two things that there are, and they're not fundamentally separate.
So they are, like, I don't understand that they can be not fundamentally separate, but also not the same.
So the status quo of Steinberg evidence indicates that land is being viewed as a space of society, and the ocean is being external to society. The affirmative perspective that
why? Like, where? I guess, like, what's the warrant for like that claim that the ocean isn't part of society?
Our Steinberg evidence specifically talks about cartographers who picture the ocean as an undifferentiated space. They don't really take into account political, cultural, and social divisions.
Are there people living in the ocean with cultures and politics?
I mean, the argument that we're making is that the ocean is perceived as an outside, and we use that outside to develop.
Okay, what's a flat ontology? What does that mean?
That just means viewing everything as a level playing field and realizing that there are connections and conflicts and intricacies.
All right, what's territorialism?
Territorialism is the nation that the state has the ocean under its control and therefore more on the wall.
Why about that?
believe that our discussion is productive.
Sure, why?
Our Steinberg evidence indicates that cartographic practice is the best way to challenge this land owner divide. Moreover, our trend
What happens once we overcome the land owner divide? Like, say we were able to, what is the result of overcoming that? A flat ontology, what's the impact of a flat ontology?
Okay, so that's several arguments here. Essentially, it's all our impacts. Our geohard evidence says that if we produce a flat ontology, we can view the world as being connected rather than separate fixed vertical points.
So what is the impact of flat ontology? What does having a flat ontology do?
Oh, it involves biopolitical violence.
What is the impact, what is biopolitical violence?
Our work evidence talks about biopolitical violence being where the state designates a value for each human being, and thereby uses that in order to subjugate certain populations that engages.
All right, so the impact you're answering is genocide?
We have several impacts. For
Can you
example,
just list them for me so I make sure?
sure, our Paris evidence talks about militarism, environmental destruction, violation of indigenous rights. Our Gaio evidence indicates that environmental destruction will culminate in extinction. And then our York evidence talks about biopolitics.
All right. How does society make collective decisions without the government's input? Is a society we're able to make like productive decisions and implement like actual changes just through speaking to each other?
We're of course a society.
Have you changed anything by reading this app this year?
I guess it's a question of epistemology the first time.
All right.
You have to start from the point. So it's
Yeah, I got it.
Why did only two off?
First off, framework interpretation of 1AC must from the hypothetical negative topical plan of U.S. opinions and debates only about the outcome of policies gathered by government action through the U.S. to develop the agent of subject or just acting to adopt the system of policy action government means violation. They are not a policy action, multiple impact versus procedural appearance. The affirmative model debates use right in favor of the app and forces debaters to actually engage the resolution to give them everything else they do procedural fairness and limited topic or pre-precedent as a debate here, sir. I can say for the studies that equal benefit of the demonstration against energy in some ways, so there are so many credits to only research computers like here with the president of life and laws, which are kind of fairly broader topic. Read more about the propositions of the topic will have no definitions of use. The topic style framework of government action will not make things on whole debate topic things do. And second is decision making. The state's point is to keep favorable prior specific weighted for integrate clash, depth of discussion with friends, the only internal way to decision making skills Steinberg and for the 13 debate is a means of settling differences. There must be controversy for the actually be to be controversy central prerequisite of where there's no clash, there's no way to be cannot reduce for effective decision about clear identification of the question to see as many concerns to be brought by a question about creation of a topic about legal immigration is not productive about focus on particular one identification of lines of marketing
different decision-making outweighs the success or failure of us as individuals, and we're largely hinges on effective decision-making skills. Steinberg is really a way we need countless to share the questions that are quite classified decision-making as do our school community, social organizations, and some of these are more consequential than others, and getting into with information kind of price decision-making. We have to access to kinds of information, how do we sort of enables one to break argumentation down to values, love, literally our success or failure, largely determined by our ability to make wise decisions and influence decisions to others. Third is switch activate. Researching and studying both sides of the issue is the only way to combat dogmatism, solve global problems, and teach ethics and skills color. Or when debates allow stimulating critical thinking by shaking hands, students from the free to establish opinions to help them appreciate the complexities, and only possibilities for them to get knowledge to argue opposing view and some weakness. And when positioning critical thinkers are aware that there are many legitimate points of view, people who would talk through with skill, we can also some rules inside the development of a reflecting thought occurs in the academic discipline of static ideas of attitude of doubt and questioning gender exposure to alternative views, content resulting from discussion of diverse perspectives, force, comparison, selection, and reformulation of ideas, and meaning learning requires openness, diverse ideas, and combination with the ability to see that disparate views can necessarily once for responding to think effectively. Students must understand the opposing perspective for this topic. Education providing a coupled with policy relevant ocean knowledge is the only way to generate political will, self-environment, for crisis facing society, space, steel, and all apply environmental knowledge, public awareness, important action, including environmental policy management, for instance, effectively modern policy making, and democratic society needs to be informed of the scientific research policy options, finding increasing public understanding of environmental problems, builds capacity for solving these problems, popular influence of government looking data systems, scale company, and increasing policy based on essential policy making, policy making, the superficial knowledge of ocean, the public unaware of the specific function, they're part of damaging the health of the ocean, exciting on this test of reviewing low levels of relevant and options to the ocean issue, exhibiting higher levels of policy relevant education, more significantly likely than the rest of knowledge support by restoration efforts. Next off is a critique, more focused on offense prong, attempting to end problems through competition trades off, focusing on the root cause and less factorization or alternatives to embrace the absence of fighting that resistance via tie to the ballot. Part like 3, that includes an occasional battles and virtual areas of the root cause remain underwrites, underlying this pattern factorization is potentially differences source of public ones, average or postage stop initial restriction, and that way you're followed by associated restrictions and the ethical that they reach the point of diminishing return new strategies are only possible and essential. This is specifically true in the context of the debates we created from the ballot as a tool for resistance to resolve the broader community, focusing on resolving the problem. In 2013, creating the ballot aspects of a resistance to little generate content and closes and creating strategy of little regard to the community problem, and they expect by 2 potential advocates to community the community. Second is our defense prong. We may or may not go for these arguments as offense. Either way, these two parts help us win the round. Using the ballot as a currency model fails. Community change is solely in the hands of the dominant debate round, which is no way visible to the public. It excludes those who want to participate in the struggle that aren't debaters. We need the 13 who see the ability to appeal and wins the referendum type members who make bodies who activate basically on social factors on the visibility of debate, asking the judge to solve the community problems, and very few of the ballots of the country. Those are debating broader than individual participants are given around very net and to replace the authority to determine communal changes. Their resistance fails and they use competition to resolve the problem. Their attempt at using adversarial strategy only that's effective way to solve problem for exactly demonstrate that non-adversarial strategy seems to have the non-right side of to render virtually invisible discourse of adversarial and perform as would be part of friendly through non-adversarial means while adversarial strategies get yield few lasting results to be received more effectively in non-adversarial manner. Okay. One, allowing some body power now is key to human enhancement. Boston 09, the movement and standards for the are going to take biological qualifying results and are enhancement enhancement group and key sensibilities that libraries of enhancement should be developed and the people should be free to use them when they take from results. 2, impossible to outweigh our argument impacts immortality and of all human weakness and pain. Trust Daniels in 08, the human species the word and body fight which will be around posting things with humans will possess abilities will be liberated from suffering and pain humans will conquer death and pain. Cognitive immortality of the human experience race will be characteristic of the age based on posting many conditions and transcendence of biological and 3, reject problem solving cases suffering. Ontology does not come first. Jarvis 2, ontological debates next to the intellectual leaders like concept for daily struggling with because of its safety of the press how it doesn't have war doesn't any reason to those actions and those cause complex politics on these questions will must answer no list that problem solving is not necessary that everybody any problem solving the near to reality of millions of dearly from the part fails to empower the marginalized and abandon them for our understanding of the ocean and the implications of exploration rely on objective scientific approach that can be universally verified through measurements and statistics. David since 76 objective analysis of oceanic data has been developed. Rifle against states have to look estimate by comparing correlation to rifle movement on the version 5. The all this and all biopolitics is not really that there is a realistic alternative that anyone knows how to implement. Period 5. Biopolitics is not really that as a realistic alternative. This claim is working as a call never turn to the air 5 writers have taken found this here, starts talking to new politics, my actions accomplished nothing but exclusion of all political rush, this message, while these message intuitions, every call control, the project, political effectively wavers between insane and catastrophic. Can we think of politics and not accepted by sovereign, frame economics, community society around this pursuit of liberation? Sovereign law has been created from this state, something to liberate the events, only destroy people, politics and hero, and desire, so there's no politics in the past where you fear God, ambiguous, and sovereignty hero, something versus as a service and continuously nuance. 7, even if the state is imperfect or academically obsolete, we can't underestimate its centrality. Normative refusal to discuss or work with this naive and counterproductive plot 88 plus. Because the view that state is obsolete, and this is the view of the discouraged student, it's a normative position assertion that they state ought to be superseded for the man. It's not core talk with what is actually going on in the world. The state is difficult. It's not because to go out after the state is dangerous, troublesome, and institution also daily low dispensable. There's no substitute for some foreseeable future and a living world of state. That's it.
Let's start with your framework argument. How would our affirmative undermine your ability to make good decisions?
Okay, it's all about deliberation. If we can't actually go around a point of controversy, then we aren't able to make strategic decisions based on the arguments we present.
Why isn't it one easy problem?
Because if we agree that the ocean is a good place, we can't really argue against it further. There isn't a point of controversy. We think that the resolution provides a great point of controversy. If we would define, like, I guess, a topic mechanism, we can argue against a topic mechanism, and that is a point of controversy that would create a point of controversy and make it able for us to deliberate against it further.
Okay. Who decides what constitutes a good decision?
Sure, I guess. Good decisions are, for example, the card talks about how decisions are made every day. The first part of the card talks about how Rush makes decisions, and policies also talks about how you make decisions in everyday life, whether you're buying a car or not, etc.
Okay. Now let's move to the team. How do you as a team not win?
I mean, we're not being further. The argument is that you shouldn't bring these sorts of arguments in a competitive sphere because nobody will be incentivized to change after round. This is all about debating and winning, right? You're not actually going to go out in the world and actually create change, convince policymakers that the ocean shouldn't be modified. You're just using this argument in order to win. We think that these types of arguments should not.
How do you know our motives for reading this?
I mean, to read these kinds of arguments,
We want to give us the
Yeah.
data, we when we want.
What's the alternative?
The alternative is to have like a tie and also, I guess, rejecting affirmative for bringing these kind of arguments.
Okay. Let's move to your case argument.
Sure.
Let's talk about your Boster mechanism. What is that human enhancement?
He talks about enhancing our intellectual, biological, physical, human capabilities, and so that will enhance our ability to live longer.
How does biopolitics help us do that?
Sure, state control is necessary to create solutions. There's like biomedical sciences that state fosters, things like that, are able to prolong human activity, and that, I guess, should be prioritized.
But there's a distinction between the state existing and being there and the state assigning a value to an individual population. Does your Boster evidence make a claim as to why that specifically is a good thing?
Yeah, he talks about how having state interventions are critical to foster like more scientific collaboration, increase the biomedical sciences, that allows for us to, I guess, pull into the energy.
Okay, that's fine. What does it mean to, quote, come to terms with sovereign exception?
The argument talks about how biopolitics isn't that, or biopower isn't that bad necessarily in America because democracy is able to check that against any sort of bad impacts the sovereign state puts on.
All right, that's fine. I'm just going to send it to well, yeah, I just sent it to you. Okay, so the order is case, critique, framework. Is anybody not ready?
Externalizing these fees over the inside-outside divisions that characterize modern society, like the ocean, how this makes it become arenas for neoliberal exploitation, resource grabbing, making environmental collapse, inevitable, politically state grabbing control of the oceans and build up arsenals. This is generated by politics security. Anything that vaguely threatens the state is exterminated. Territorial disputes like the state conflicts and law and the senseless killing of marine life food go to line by line. We frame the issue at the top. We critique the worst form of biopolitics and argue that it's a net bad system since it can either exist as an institutional structure or now we're arguing that it's net bad and should be taken out vote. The first argument indicates that bipolar is not always bad. However, again, we're critiquing the system in general. You should prefer because our evidence talks about issues like the Holocaust and how that was caused by biopolitics. Their impact evidence here is terrible. Doesn't give any tangible examples where biopolitics could be good. I'll give an example like the Holocaust, which killed 6 million people. They say ontology first, and then next ontology is first our Anderson piece of evidence indicates that we conceptualize the things like the ocean shapes the way we act towards the meaning that we frame them as being external space of society. Then they become ontologically a place that can only be exploited for reasons of resource. They say our understanding the ocean is objective, the status quo. We impact of that argument is bad because again, it's just a beautiful space for resource exploitation that can fuel the neoliberal economy. It's impact by price evidence that leads to environmental destruction. They say that there's no alternative to biopolitics. Firstly, firstly, some of them is reductive because they concede that the land-ocean divide is the root cause of biopolitics, and then our cyber government indicates that by breaking down the land-ocean divide, we can resolve biopolitics. So mean that we clearly have an alternative to the biopolitical system. But yes, sovereignty, breaking down the fundamental construction between land and sea solves that. I just say that analysis. Also, they think we don't engage the state. We engage the epistemology of the state, which is the reason why we're no longer complicit with the structures of violence that are based off the land-ocean divide. There's no unique mark for why we have to work with the state or advocate state action to engage the state, whatever that means. Critique. The first reason why you should accept or affirm within the debate round is that this is the topic. The topic today, the topic is about ocean policy, and several talented and smart debaters are trying to engage the topic. The fact that they have the wrong starting point of the status quo because it's framed under issues that are inherently militarized, meaning the way we approach the ocean is bad. That's how we're going to train the next generation. That's going to lead to further bad policies and zero policy failure. That's our cyber again. It's also trying to indicate the debate teams they conceded. Trying to talk about how when students have an ability to practice reflecting, thinking about holistic systems like the ocean, that when they go into the real world, they're more likely to have specific critical thinking skills, like system thinking skills. That's trying to an empirical analysis of reasoning. First on the offensive problem. Competition leads to better policies because when we compete, we come up with what are the best ideas, and therefore we can produce better ways to break down the land ocean divide. Also, their efforts about factualization doesn't matter because we solve this argument through a fluid ontology, which essentially rejects all static interpretations of the world. That we can stop viewing others as a threat. That's also or duality evidence. Also, next thing, they're banking. You should reject all banking towards banking specifically in the context of the race. At least the section from the pieces they quoted a personal identity, which we did not introduce in this paper. They say also the oath is not an endorsement. It's a link. The state agrees that we're right, but refuses to actually do anything or endorse our motive or epistemology, which is exactly what our role is about. Let's talk more about that on the framework debate. On the defensive problem, again, the banking evidence is not applied. The banking is talking about community problems. We not necessarily introduce the problem with the community and structure, but rather a problem with our epistemology in general in this country and in the world. They're bound to, as Court's going to apply, because the personal agency is not solely in the judge's hands. We can all take agencies, debaters in this round, and people observing this round, which is the reason why we don't want to balance as Court is the argument. Framework. The balance to reward the team that breastplates that the land ocean provide counter-interpretation of firmness advocated the direction of the topic. Either we're close enough to the topic, and we need article or the F is a massive security dissenter model. And I told you this, that fluid, I told you to keep the breakdown model subject that's the Anderson computers, impact on the political application, prefer broader models of rigid interpretations that reasonability, intelligence, security policies, with minor procedural unlimited. That's frames all your impacts and counter-interpretation, duty, interpret, NRF, and top education. This, that we are a prerequisite to a point is non-military. Most regions approach the ocean to boost the military, even in environmental direction, as the military. We represent the quiet shout out of the Pacific. That's the Bellarmine press. And no act can be truly non-military without our discussion. Resource development, dividing the world into inside and outside things development is of the inside, not outside like the ocean. Outside natural gas to develop the ocean, they develop the economy of the military using the ocean. Reclaiming the ocean as a social space for a side of government on the development of the ocean. See when it's exploration of the basin, for exploration is cartography or map making. And if that basis is flawed and rooted in solid structures of violence, then we need a new story point, which is the affirmative domain. And we meet first it should Trinity desirability as OED 11 and resolve this to reduce my mental analysis. That's Random House in 11 and the USFD is the people, Howard 5. The government is the people, the government sees the work, the people may replace it in good limits. This argument reflects the logical sovereignty. Whatever doesn't fit among the clear-cut template of sovereignty discussions immediately relegated as dangerous to decision-making. These calls from the bottom for change are about to pre-interaction by the state and it's great to lose power. That's due to end policy taking this out. Restricting political discourse necessitates policy that creates violence and policy making. Durand 3. Here was the news by to mobilize population supporting conservative south leftists and politicalized so they could be noticed that it was never by the arms race made the less secure and the scope of political discourse limited and airway fairness and unquestioned trust and the popular practice fearless and equal reactionary not only when acceptance for unprecedented regressive policy but push the war in. Language is that policy focus prevents understanding language and the implications. There are two facts. 8 point is exclusion. They justify racial sexist language that drives people out of the activity community and which are ways and beast point, terms of implementation, representation, determination, and rock rules, and rock war rules makes the 1 AC past 8 level. That's Jordan 6. Representation of representative with decision makers makes sense of reality to which they assign something value to states representation of political ways of seeing the world making something to see and all the unseen representation includes how actors are acting part of reality. Representation limit course of action makes certain policies conceived by others, unthinked by identified with state represents their own state helps to understand what policy being adopted in. Zero by line, there have been talks about how being prepared for a discussion beforehand is good. It's not our fault that they didn't prepare for our fault. So this is incredibly impressive. Logical flaws, we should just one after as well. So everyone is super prepped on it. Director of the counter-intervention sealed the link to this center was still being logical. This limits argument is rooted in corrupt scope, pedagogy, transit, and limited scope. We don't develop critical thinking skills like specifically systems they can go. And I'll tell you what's unfair. This fairness impact being successful because the unfair thing is that we are completely with structures of neoliberal exploitation of working classes in the name of increasing corporate products and conflict creation as a product of our paranoia. We question like complicity in their responses. It's unfair that we have to tap out of chaos. Give me a break. Go to decision making. The efforts to bring up the decision making is way, successful possibility to generate land conflicts, neighboring territorials, and that side of a beast way, when he trends in terms of national educational models, and she finds that allowing for discussions like ours is productive. That analysis above any role about filters or frameworks, anyone doing the role about these that even improve the bottle debates better, still would have to break ocean territorials. And there's no reason why this round tournament is key to building decision making. There's no unique views in this round of debate, and it's going to be a first effective loss strategy. Those elements that must react to decision making and the amount of political decision making mobilized the population to war and atrocities. That's cheaper in 7. Once we identify ourselves with statements, we are as a dynamic we see to generate one committee and consequence of loss of control not only reading knowledge but the manner which the efficiency is protecting trace on the skin of state trainers and best lives and pursuit of the enemy. We condemn us for a rock rather than indicting ourselves for believing the responsible for seeking to spread the lies within us. Switch side. We are switch side. We present a valid advocacy in. They'll never switch on the F that we framework them for African because they don't want to talk about security studies in. Affirmation is never our African discussion. How we can better ocean policies. That's fundamentally a call to affirmance in or advocacy statement. And I'll call for some type of members to the technique of the far right. That is distinction content. Environmental means learning how to listen to both sides of the issue, even the issue, and massive issue like bush and prince, which are use a fair balance, political thinking, the food, obvious, social equality, and justice, academic freedom, sort of goal with both sides represent the result of this repressive tolls and simply the impede action matters worth acting on to get further ideological space for right-wing agendas. Topic education. Direction of the topic solves the education, no reason why dividing and expect the by USFD actions that better and we impact on satisfying education based around supporting the security politics of the state and Steinberg and the form of education produced an 8-minute narrative for saying political blurring the situation theory and practice space for bad policy communication, worth advocates and kill the practical powers within debate and ask yourself the question, if not true, then what do you look as a student education space for democratic valuable family provided civilization alternative?
Okay. How does the app utilize societal ontology?
Essentially, when we break down our static or conceptions, such as the rigid hierarchies which are implicit within the land-ocean divide, then
What are
we
these
rescue
conceptions? What are these conceptions we have now in status quo about the ocean?
Well, one thing is that since the ocean is an outside space, it does not matter. It simply exists as a space that is used to develop the inside. For
Okay,
example,
so
like resource
what is-
exploitation prove that they're discussed
Okay,
on
sure.
site.
So what is using a cartographical interrogation do that to solve militarization in Europe?
It's a question of the root of the problem. Our Steinberg evidence indicates that the way that we started creating these ontological planes is when we put in
What are
place land
ontological
ocean products. There are different levels of what something is worth based on how we view the essence of that.
Okay,
The
so
ocean is essentially viewed as an outside space of society.
Okay, so if we believe the ocean has worth, why is the affirmative necessary? Policymakers already believe the ocean has worth.
First, they definitely do not. Our press evidence is fantastic on this question. It talks about how, for example, in marine reserves, which are essentially designed to protect the ocean from supposedly all destruction, they allow the U.S. Navy to operate, which is the worst polluter in the entire world.
How does the affirmative prevent militarization from constantly create and leading to things like environmental degradation?
The root of this militarization is essentially the land-ocean divide, because that is what is allowed to see, for us to see the ocean as a space we dominate.
Why is there only one root for environmental degradation?
It's definitely not only a one root sort of
So then
argument,
how
it's
does
just
the
the basis.
affirmative solve?
It's the basis of the system itself.
Okay, so you believe that instrumentalization of nature is bad, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so your Anderson evidence uses the water world as a metaphor. If you see the ocean as a metaphor, why aren't you still using that same sort of instrumentalization?
Well, first, I wouldn't say that it's only a metaphor. Our scientific evidence is very rooted in the materiality of the ocean as a space, and talks about how
your Anderson evidence here, when you indicates that the water world is simply a metaphor.
Wait, our Anderson and Peters evidence is in the context of the fluid ontology of water. I wouldn't say an ontological characterization is
Okay,
strictly
that's fine.
metaphorical.
Why don't things like democracy check back on biopower?
Okay, firstly, it's empirically proven that our impacts exist in the status quo. It's a question of uniqueness.
Okay, so some states have used their power. Why doesn't that mean that, in America, for example, democracy can check back on
I mean, it hasn't checked back on violence on Guantanamo, has it? It hasn't checked back on violence in the
Okay,
Middle East.
static ontology. How do we reach? What is like the endpoint of your, affirmative? How do we reach a static or a fluid ontology?
Well, that's just a question of looking at a cartographical investigation of the land ocean divide. I'm not really sure that.
How do the judges assess when we've reached a fluid ontology?
It's not a question of whether we've reached.
Then how do you solve militarization? You said that we have to have a fluid ontology.
It's a question of our method. If we win that our advocacy is productive.
So the app doesn't necessarily have to solve anything.
That's not the argument we're making. If our advocacy is productive, then we should talk about it.
There's like a decent sized overview. I don't know if you can tell it was. Let me know when it's done. Grade 2 or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, is that fine?
Alright. Our understanding the government was going to hypothetical negative metabolism of the United States federal government. They don't vote against this. That means disagree with these substances. The plan just means that our interpretation creates a better model for debate. Debate isn't to solve for the purpose of it. It's a terrible unique world. This form there has to be solved like conversations or bloggers who are actively wanting to process because the having conversations between people is sufficient to solve their harm because it can change their orientation toward the ocean.
our interpretations as a big role at the time to with the doing they have with both of the one issue is going to talk about and the maybe it makes the states form about the resolution there. Interpretations of unpredictable force at the time of these large possible sequence every policy has goals that can have the worst case scenario in terms of what this topic could be the impact to an unlimited topic is decision making. So that's the staggered or really to be one. And when I say that using the resolution questions we see support for making facilities flash and definitely discussion would enable to substantive and objectively identify this facility. Comparison can be environmentally effective decisions make understanding of non celebration for decision policy making is critical things to allow us to process large information about a problem choose the best course of action to solve using cost benefit analysis. There are amount of information using the cost benefit analysis to weigh two different to weigh competing options to solve these same sort of hard quality. We actually teach because it's like a 7 pieces of cyber net really have so we can see it as the success of real civilization as a whole depends on effective decision making. We can politicians have to decide who would be good war. Individuals have to decide how to let these politicians and also decision we make in our daily lives. Poor decision making is the only portable skills that identified with in the round. Also decision making internal information pieces skills that we learn in the main like cost benefit analysis teaches how to make better choices of people we elect in policy before in terms of things like the environment have find right policymakers to support like things that they would see as our viable political opinion. When we get these sort of decision making simply promote the best course of action are may take actions but the people who would support those courses of action that are best into the power should be known with this and these sort of situations we learned today that we learned today would be able to solve the gaps on their next argument is talking about how they roll the ballot and filter how you look at everything that's fine. The roll the ballot is not like the roll the ballot is determined with the best interpretation of the day. Their next argument is this round is a community decision making. The community interpretation is simply what it would look like if the entire community adopted the same, which means that this round, even if this round is not uniquely needed there to decision making simply the way it's better. The debate is how who creates a better model for debating the community at large. Their next argument is that the hard debate is good debate that says that not so for straight off education decision making says I'm not going for the procedural fairness impacts, which is what they were probably attempting to answer here when they said the hard debate is good debate is like our activities means the decision making says I'm going to and environmental structure. They said our method of decision making leads to war because that's not true. The person maybe can change the decision making happening in the CS code. The seven is CS code determined by the type of decisions that are made right now. When we have debates about policies, we're able to learn more about them and do some things like cost benefit analysis. We're able to change our decision making calculus and do it like when they were considering more ethical when we say that they are specific. It's fine. I'm not going through such a thing. This isn't office to say that they are not answering their own piece of office. You see, it's trying to make mirrors. Or at least that's not true. Like the people who are on the extreme ends of the political spectrum, they're not trying to promote switch. I mean, they're trying to like political change. Like people who are on the very far left, or people like the Tea Party, are not going to be trying to promote people switching sides and thinking about the other side's perspective. They're probably the opposite of that. The most pragmatic extreme design. Policy relevant notion now being the only way to foster effective solutions, which makes it different than what they're doing with theory for the work of the topic education is like your topic. Education is good to see a lot of sense of the public hears about the ocean down, they do not be policy relevant knowledge that your environmental structure, your habits specific to the ocean, the popular everybody got the pockets, the citizens, the intricacies of policy, they don't teach the intricacies of policy and ocean policy through their further they change personal representation, which means that they can't solve only policy relevant education, enable the public politicians accountable for combating ocean destruction and sharing multiple to force them to do so. Actually, policy relevant education teaches never because the oceans are key to all life on Earth. Environmental structure also is case because the worst part is the environmental structure affect marginalized people like this who rely on nature for food and income, but they're suffering from sea level rising and slums being whatever we need. And this sort of education will lead to people making real more change like that. Practice of also terminally searching cases that we want to see sea level how we're able to engage with politics and we're creating a better way to engage with politics through our method. They say that our education is better, the CS education that we can change. The CS also their education, their model alternative to our model education is worse. The failure to engage with politics will result in taken over by the extreme right wing discrimination war worldwide. Their method doesn't improve care conditions but the oppress their method. Basically the death sort of biopolitics that they're talking about. Working 98. Work to realize the government trying to prevent wages and saving super white collar workers and upwardly levels of tax and rental benefits and not for the normal side of the system is still looking for. We're trying to reform the system and you want to see it like that and the whole actually wipe that dark color. Instead we're going to go back to actually make these their super religious elevated to the German industrial steel mills and everything all work for the military and we're doing church prosperity using gas for the country the one on the left is an implication of politics and tickets plus the other theories on the left. They did this is all politically extending the different claims subject to the health to subvert the established order.
Everyone ready? What's the bright line on the limit today?
You sent me a tactile app that federal government should increase their ocean exploration and development.
You made the argument how decision making internal link between the What's the internal link between the? Can you just explain the internal link between the?
Sure. Sure. So your impacts to your program are based on like things that happen within the government and how the government does things that are like possibly bad according to your app. The decision making skills that we'll learn in a debate round.
No. My question is the internal link between the stasis point and the decision making.
Oh, okay, sure. So the one of TV's of staggering community efforts is talking about how when we look, like when there's a status point provided by the resolution, we're able to like clash and have like in-depth strategies and in-depth like discussion on that, which means that we're able to like deliberate on whether things are good ideas and decide which one's better.
How specific does that need to be that stasis point to access this office?
Our argument is that it has to be ocean exploration and development policy by the federal government. Because that's something that people can be adequately prepared for and predict based on the resolution.
The affirmative should affirm and the negative should
My
negate. That's
question is more
predictable.
about the number, like how big the topic is. What's the sort of right line here in terms of how small the topic has to be for us to have a good enough basis for it?
Sure. I mean, your interpretation of the topic would include every critical act that's been put out this season as well as every policy act. Our interpretation, like we define ocean, we define resolve, we define should. The definition of ocean would limit the topic sufficiently without making it too limited. Like, we're not
You're
over
claiming that. You're claiming that you don't over-limit, but it's still small enough, or it's still.
It's small enough to have depth of discussion, and even if
But
we can't put a key
My
specific strategy in
question
every,
is, what's the word
I
for
don't.
that?
What do you? Because
What's the
if
word
the
for why?
topic is too large, you're not going to be able to research all the affirmatives and have a strategy, or topics generic to rely
Let's
on.
go to the education debate.
Sure.
What do we learn when we talk about the topic through a policy?
Sure, so the steel evidence says right now, like, it's too late. We need the government to take action to solve environmental harms. Individuals are not going to be sufficient
My
to make that
question
change.
is more about why do we need to read a topical
Right.
context to learn about
Because,
this?
like the steel evidence says, people care about the oceans now and know that bad things are happening, but they don't realize, like, they don't have, like, the policy knowledge to push their, like, to pressure people, like, the politicians they elect to make changes in policies that would be
But
required.
why does me reading a topical context mean that people will be more likely to do that?
Obviously, if you read a topical context, you would have more faith in the government. It's also competing for creations that seems the community at large adopts this interpretation. Which means if we all learn about the ocean
Wait,
policy,
so
and learn about the
are
harms
you
of the
arguing that if I read like protect everyone that's around be more willing to go talk to their comments people about it?
if the whole community read policy acts, we'd probably be more engaged in politics in general. I'll defend that, sure.
Okay, let's go to the Schaefer argument. You made the argument that if we have the sort of model that you have, then we can prevent the government from creating atrocities. Considering the examples of the Iraq War, which is in the Schaefer evidence, how was the policy debate in the past being able to resolve it?
So this example, like, I don't understand what this card is saying. Like, our talking about policy debate, you don't have to defend every bad thing the state has ever done or every bad person who's ever come out of policy debate. You have to defend the best version of it or what you think it
Okay,
should
so
be.
if it's,
So
if
you
it's
can-
bad, okay, so just to clarify this, if it's bad, the policy is bad, then you're not asking us to defend it.
We're not asking you to defend bad policies. We're asking you to pick an example when the government can do something good if you're done.
taken away without homicide because his vibrant son will be in order company by her. Now we just like love their life for his notion of how that life that corresponds with his aim is multi-life to produce extra life. And equals vibrant off to his force after his life in general, now making them more difficult to carry and this suppresses his life with team power, potential, and divine power, and often by that means as multiplying and opposing potentialities of the life. Now how do you see that? Externalizing these things like neoliberals, however, they do not have an alternative in order to solve neoliberalism. He conceded in classics that they don't actually solve fluid ontology, which means they cannot prevent the militarization and neoliberalism that is continuing. In addition, there's no alternative system, right? Allow every entity of the revolution, every dictators will cause the writing of revolution because we live any current market makes where there's not alternative system that means you we cannot afford to meet our deals in substitution by alternative economies, we have pressure for always had to market, and there was a managerial situation at the end of the system. They change the neoliberalism system and the statute. Now they say that though we fear the worst power is biopower. However, that is not true because biopower is being checked with things like democratic systems because the people will always replace the policymakers that are bad. Now they say fluid ontology. First time there is no war for those two. Not allow any 1 year extrapolation because my block the block was predicated on the 2 weeks. Now it's in the Jarvis evidence indicates that ontology does not come first and it has multiple words. One is an ontological base to prevent solvency for daily struggles, which means they cannot solve they cannot solve these struggles that the indigenous people are facing with. They talk about their ways. Second is ontology is not influence those whose actions and whose actions not actually compromise policy because policymakers don't care about ontology. Rather, again, it prevents them but to mobilizing them for change. For Jarvis, he's a professor of international relations. He knows and he knows what policymakers will be influenced by. Third, process. He considers the act does not actually solve ontology, which means that the act does not do anything. You should vote negative on presumption, extinction, and the steel evidence always on policy. Jonas 96 that is their ontology capacity that cannot be extinguished always have very advantage. Even in the most totalitarian studies, there's appropriated cannot be extinguished or removed from the state. The civil survival takes up temporary absence of freedom. This is no goal to be a state which man does. Even possible drowning now sending Moria's evidence that indicates that sovereign acceptance, i.e. biopower, is possible without risking extinction because it accomplishes a lot more than if we reject biopower from politics and leads to war. Because there will be no one in control. Additionally, democracy will be able to check back on biopower. This was empirically proven in the early 2000s when the public learned about the war on terror from the media. They voted out the policymakers that put forward those bad actions because in 2024 they continue to fight political discourse and will pursue that now to be easily superficial misleading because outspewing us with only different strategy and multiply next to power. Those two kinds of regime players in the welfare states only form lawsuits using to a different from failure. There's always potential for distorted regime to actually occur for us as physical policy or political policy changes and constraints this obstruction by plus that is very different than national social government democracy welfare states are regimes of power knowledge of very possible and circulation power modern scientific multiple modernities modern science like radically different potentials extending flawed evidence that indicates the state is an obsolete institution and will latch up to any sort of resistance, which means that even if the affirmative goes through with their method, you cannot vote affirmative because the state will eventually co-opt and lead to more militarization. That's the flawed evidence. The affirmative seeds of political, which makes every aspect of the state worse. Clause 5. Our government systems have powers along with the capacity to destroy the will of the system. We must learn from whom the set field advantage of governments is the right to dependent on government. We should be able to take the letter when it comes to the use of energy, temperature, and fight with the force, less embraces value, liberty, ethic, and policies, and you can think strengthen the protections and apply them to new wrong. Such an action requires leadership of looking at government entities first, looking them at exports, our system, less free from government, accelerates in their words, right.
The root cause of all the impacts that we're talking about is the fact that we view the state as a fundamental construction. That means that our epistemological opposition to the state is uniquely key to solve. The first argument that make up the case law is that biopowers keep their evidence talks about how sovereignty is bad. That is precisely our argument. Also, our Notre evidence is really good about how biopolitics is not bad. It talks about Holocaust, Guantanamo, and the Iraq War, which are all empirical examples of how the biopolitical security state is net worse than anything. Is net bad. Also, they concede the Gerhardt and Anderson Peters evidence. So when they talk about how there's no sovereignty, we do so because the way that we view the ocean is what shapes our action. That means that our disagreement with the state is uniquely key. They talk about how there's no sovereignty over neoliberal argument, or Steinberg evidence indicates that we are in epistemological opposition to the state, which means that we saw our view of the state as a fundamental construction. They talk about how neoliberalism is negative, but they've conceded the Gaia evidence that we control an existential impact about how the state and territorialism and sovereignty is what is going to cause extinction unless we mobilize students to act in the debate space. That is why our discussion is deeply key. They talk about how equality is not first, but in the context of security state, yes it is. Extend the 2AC analysis, which talks about how the externality means that we place the ocean as an ontological place for exploitation. That is why our discussion is key. They talk about extinction outways, but we have an existential impact too. That is our Gaia evidence. Plus, then they talk about the state co-ops argument. We engage the state epistemologically. Movements like the civil rights movement were a productive step in the right direction. There's no reason why we need to directly operate through the state. Also, we do not necessarily frame the state as bad. It's just a knowledge reduction in regard to the state. So we resolve that argument then. Critique. There was a key concession on this law when we said that we break down binaries and thus solve fractionalization. There is a key framing argument on this about how when we include the community, that outweighs, that is the biggest impact to evaluate the round. That was conceded. Right. Here's a meta-framing issue. Debate is given to produce effective advocacies in decision-making. The current policies that they engage in locks and unethical practice that creates unethical people. That is the case of education and failure. It's only matter to those who create those skills. That means the uniqueness determines the direction of the link on all these sides. The interpretation of affirmatives must defend advocacy in the direction of the topic. The next we dissatisfied public practice, but not the political process that takes out the internal interference. That means that it's solely a question of whether process education is good. They talk about how you do not need to reject this opposition, but yes, it does. If you vote negative, that means you reject the idea that students can question the epistemological assumptions regarding the state. That was the piece of our reasonability argument. Also, debate produces the best methodology. They've conceded the trend evidence, they've conceded the Steinberg evidence, means that a discussion is productive because we question the epistemological assumptions regarding the way we view the state. They talk about reasonability, but they've mishandled our reasonability argument. It talks about how the impacts of our discussion outweigh any minor procedural impacts. Also, you can extend the role of Bell. They've conceded that we've used about the way that we view sovereignty. That means that we have to have an epistemological discussion regarding those assumptions. Definitions based. Our OED evidence says that should is the desirability to act. Random House says the result is reduced by mental analysis. Harvey says that USFGs and people definitions cannot find an absolute truth because topicalities, arbitrary, and clear divisions are impossible. Who knows if academic or policy or dictionary definitions are really the best decision making? These divisions manifest sovereign logic and divide the land of policy from the ocean of critique when debate is really an ontological through its place. Affirmatives attempting to break that binary then has to discuss something else. That means all of our dissents and rigid boundaries apply to their framework, and you should prefer our definitions. You can extend the topic education dissent first, and we are prerequisite to non-military. Our current view of the ocean means that we allow the ocean to develop our military and strengthen that. That means that we are prerequisite to any non-military development of the ocean. Second is that they concede this time together. This means that we currently view the ocean as an outside that serves to develop the inside. All of our actions do not actually develop the ocean, they just develop the state using the ocean. Also, they concede that we are prerequisite to exploration for the topic. Our current cartography is net bad, meaning we have to resolve that argument in order to actually have a productive exploration. Then their next argument is that they're not better for critical thinking, but we are not better. Their argument, if you engage in substantive argument that is more critical thinking than you can actually get from reading a generic politics, is that also they conceded Steinberg evidence, which indicates that the 1AC was a prerequisite to decision making, and it talks about how status quo decision making, that meaning that when we create a more ethical model of decision making, that is what is that good. That is what you should be voting for. And you can extend the Schaefer evidence. They talk about how you can work together to resolve these issues. Our Schaefer evidence indicates that the state is going to preclude that from happening, because there's always going to be a scapegoat for anything that goes wrong. Then, the next argument, they talk about how there's not policy education, but we turn this argument because they conceded Steinberg evidence to talk about how status quo knowledge production is predicated on state security qualities. That means that there's no actual policy education. It's just intended to further strengthen the security state. They talk about how we do not help anybody. We resolve this argument. Steinberg evidence indicates that we're epistemic engagement with the state.
the one about kicked out of certain proceedings to reject the banking piece of evidence because he's now talking about their hypothetical piece. There's no way he takes out any risk of office because these cards are put away on free one. Too many concessions on the free debate for them to win first. They can see that the debate is the key to solve their harms. And when he crosses pieces like conversations, what's able to create change between the debate is key about skill teaching about teaching us how to engage in politics, which means we can solve all of their problems and talking about it. We don't have to do that within the competitive space. So competitive space is big. We also can see the tactical version of the version one out of the federal government to do math and use a different process than use the CSO, which we way to make it not political, which would resolve all of their harms. It would also resolve our harms about engaging in these safety pragmatic part of our pragmatic practice part of the program. They also think they can read their biographies about politics and the negatives, which would be able to change how we orient ourselves from the state, which means a measure to create change. There's no reason why reading out both sides is necessarily key. They've also been see the political at war with the practices that they can see the political message. This is the warning evidence the bottom of the program made, and they wanted our there's evidence the bottom of the case page to learn on the shredding. We're talking about how when we don't engage in politics like the far right, the only ones who are engaging in a direct argument is a true argument. We the only when the left are people who are moderate, so cheap for politics means the farthest people on the right are the ones who are going to kill the people who are going to bring unnecessary wars and like violence on people who are marginalized by, which is the worst instance about politics. Only are about method to make crazy forever to the best method, like the best version of these statements. They can see that these statements are never going to one end the one end plot on the case paper. They can see these statements never going to there are the world. We should try to create the best model for to make possible the policy to make one under our interpretation which is the better the affirmative and the high technical and everything metabolism by the federal government would require that we were learning about engaging in politics and how engaging in politics would be a good thing. There's two empirical examples. The first is Mary McCarthy's regardless of the reason black argument started to join the beast even in 1960s when we realized they only wanted to they only want to talk about the existing system. They went to politics and actually made it. It was like going into the political realm and creating changes. They don't do that. They just want to talk about it. They only engage in the system directly. They're able to change them on the second table. Is the Weimar Republic arose in the 1920s because German the Weimar Republic in the 1920s German intellectuals left the public today because they viewed politics as becoming to this open the door for Nazis and become which means that they're their method of creating change which involves not working with the people who are the worst at creating changes to enter into policy making. They've also considered this. They haven't really answered the seal evidence and internal links to the case morning is the way we turn outweigh we outweigh and turn the case because their hearts are worse than when the far right and power us you saw the case from through the seal evidence because talking about policy relevant solutions to ocean problems going to keep two people to they're like about the ocean. That was like never talking about how when people have policy relevant ocean knowledge are able to pressure the people in Congress and elect people who are going to try to create the best kind of environmental policies, which is the only way we're able to solve environmental structural issues that we're able to solve all of their harm and even external impact and force that are generated by the right filling in politics, which means that worthy. There's no reason, there's no way to go down. No, why not? He said they say this logical discussion is key, and then we can see that that's not true. We didn't concede that engaging these statements best. You can classify the Jarvis evidence in the case he's talking about how policymakers are not influenced by discussion about things about policy or epistemology and those things can materially change conditions for people. They can do that. The place that they're speaking from is inherently privileged because they those people who are actually suffering are not able to talk about epistemology or intelligence and need pragmatic changes like through things that only the government is able to provide, which is the reason. So they change, they're not going to be able to meet any more. So the next argument is this reasonability argument. They can see the reasonability creating moral hazard because the encouragement seems to rush the fringes. They're saying that, it's not that bad because we get this discussion. No, we give a certain sort of discussion. Can we tackle affirmative, but it also means that we're not going to try to create the most absurd act possible. They say that they're prerequisite topic education or not because the resolution specifies non-military. There's no reason why non-military development can happen in these states because they say they view the ocean outside of these states. That's not true. We read out time right the ocean includes the seafloor, which the acts are happening right now are examples of ocean development things. Or they could even have an evidence like colonies on the ocean, like not colonies, but like land floating islands or something that would develop an actual ocean. And also they say like cartography is bad. That doesn't mean that any exploration has bad. They can do things like the NFP or things do the NOA when there would be examples of good exploration. They say that resolve is the decision act that resolve means that we meet the policy, we plan a policy point of action. That's true. They say resolve is mental analysis. No resolve is means that there's going to be a policy point of action. And the United States government is the government of DC, not the people that are in the language they specify. It doesn't mean that we can't come to the conclusion about what the best interpretation is. We will have to debate around that. Our interpretation is that the federal government is the central government of DC. It's the only one that concept resolution. The one is the Erickson evidence that binds these words, and it concept policy debate. They say the limits for critical thinking. That's not true. We have different best critical thinking. He's coming up with things within a limited topic is the best way to learn about them. Because it's not created to come up with something out of the blue. It's created to work within constraints. They say that prerequisite decision making and they're most ethical. I'm not like the independent critical limits decision making stuff, but their form of decision making is inevitably going to fail with all the work they did at the top. They talk about how the state's going to co-opt and stop their movement from becoming a part of policy. That's not true. All of our evidence indicates the only way they can change the state is from the inside out, which means that only our framework is like the method to do that.
Euler's framework. You have an overview at the top, and then I'll go into another one. Is anybody not ready? But extend our counter to British Empire, the rational topic significantly limits abuse and the affirmative acts as massive security decided framework. There is a fundamental problem. If they're going for a framework against an affirmative that argues the lines of control that dominate all ocean policy is the basis for alliance and for demoting third populations is fit to be exterminated. This argument is a reification of the predictable government control that the 1AC isolates as the fundamental problem of policy making in regards to the ocean and the status quo. The only true non-military discussion can happen if we have this discussion first. Vote out because we control unique status quo ocean policies, bad and militarization, making violent extermination and environmental destruction inevitable. They conceded the precise evidence in the two knowledge indicates that we dominate the ocean because we view it as simply a place for resources. We can leave the environmental class that serves as an impact under the framework of the social reason why we need to start with this discussion. We are prerequisite to topic education for 3 reasons. The first is non-military. They concede the delivery evidence is the entire debate which indicates that we policymakers fundamentally approach the ocean as through the lens of military development, because all they seek to do is control for the purpose of the military. Give the example of marine research, which while they're supposed to be for use for environmental protection, they're really being used to China out of the Pacific, which is an example where we approach ocean policy through a military lens. Second is development of Steinberg evidence indicates that we relegate the oceans and outside space, meaning that it's on a lower ontological plane which justifies resource exploitation. That means that affirmatives like natural gas on this topic don't actually develop the ocean itself. They read a definition about the ocean that doesn't change the definition of the world development. They don't develop the ocean, but rather our economy, our military, while simply exploiting or using our ocean. The third is exploration. Since cartography is the basis for exploration, if that's the law, then we need to change those structures, which is exactly what the 1AC seeks to do. It's a question of sequencing. If we win that, our discussion needs to come first before we have the best form of topic education, then vote out. By the way. First, I'll address the concession that the tuner pointed out that we made. The first is that first she said that debate is not key. Firstly, they concede the Steinberg evidence, which indicates that we need epistemology. We disagree with the state, which is the reason why when we're still ocean policy, which is start with the question of epistemology. They concede the Steinberg evidence the entire round. Next, they also concede the competing method argument, which indicates that when we are in a debate station, we are competing, coming with the best methods for addressing issues that were better and more likely to produce better forms. We're more likely to produce better forms of knowledge products and better methodologies. They also concede the trend evidence the entire way. Trend indicates that when we have a discussion about the things like the ocean as a holistic structure, that we go into the real world, we develop specific critical thinking skills like system thinking skills. There's very little analysis in the tuner. So exactly what tuner, or rather what critical thinking skills they analyze, whereas our tried evidence is an empirical analysis and gives specific examples of thinking skills like system thinking skills. When we ask this next, she says, top version of firstly, the prerequisites and top the argument addresses this, which means they don't ask this anywhere else. It's also a state government, so they said, they said to read the argument as a negative view or a fundamental affirmation of the rest of the topic, which is the reason why it is logical to read or argument as the affirmative. Also, that even if that's true, the fact that they made arguments which talk about how we should not be discussing things like ontology means that they would exclude our discussion on the negative as well, which means that their interpretation does not allow for our discussion, which means if we win that our discussion is productive, and that's the reason why we should allow us to read it on the FA, say that we see the political narrative 0-1 sense of why we need to read a topical version of Atlantic for us to be engaging institutions correctly. Or Steinberg evidence indicates that the way that we should start engaging institutions is through the lens of epistemology, which is where the 1AC starts. Also, this right-wing impact is not explained at all in the tuner. What the reason that the state is allowed to control us, according to the Schaefer evidence, assuming that it's the only sovereign power that is the only thing that we can act in the real world. We don't give ourselves agency. Epistemological disagreement is the first thing that we train people within debate spaces and students will wait to grow and become important decision makers that they state is where all decision making starts, and we won't be able to pursue what is. That's the other thing. That doesn't matter because we reform it through our epistemology. That was above also. Next, she said that she gives two empirical examples where their framework interpretation was. So first thing, new meaning they should not evaluate these specific examples because all of ours are rooted in our evidence. Also, we control this better. Examples like Gitmo and Rock and the environmental destruction in our present evidence prove that in the status quo policy making is bankrupt, which means that in the if we continue with those same structures of knowledge production, then inevitably policy we produce will be bankrupt. That's again Steinberg evidence conceded too much, which means for them to be able to win this argument. The next is the steel argument about how chocolate policy will engage people and we will be able to like the right people. Firstly, the Schaefer evidence is the big dis that the Schaefer talks about. The example of the Iraq war, we positive the state being part of the struggle, we allowed the state to take action on it. We have to Iraq, but really what the slide was the Iraq war, where we did not make our own decision. We didn't recognize that because we were epistemologically complicit with the state and seems able to play violent acts on our behalf, which is an independent decider to the framework for reason to reject them. Then they say the policy makers are not influenced by ontology or epistemology. Of course, they can see the Anderson Peters evidence indicates that ontology and epistemology, the way we view things, is the way we view the rest of the world, which is the reason
reason why we need glycolysis and epistemology is starting point again. The conception of the cyber gaps also means that again when it's next they say that we're not a prerequisite that was about because we can't truly develop the that analysis above. Next, the definitions they functionally continue to be okay. On the limits debate, there's no bright line here. The rest of the topic significantly limited. There was very little to it on analysis as to why our players be possible for them to access that. Also on the decision making, impacting it, we need this means that doesn't matter.